These are the headlines we're following at this hour. Amid the Israel-Hamas conflict and the worsening humanitarian crisis in Gaza, the U.S. and Israel agreed to develop an aid plan, though the opening of the Rafah crossing remains unclear. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden will visit Israel this Wednesday amid concerns over a wider regional conflict. One of Asia's largest aerospace and defense exhibitions, Seoul ADEX 2023, kicked off today, with the country's first domestically produced supersonic fighter jet, the KF-21, and the U.S. strategic bomber, the B-52, among the aircraft on show. North Korea reaffirms its stance at the UN that Pyongyang will not give up its nuclear weapons, once again citing threats from the U.S. Good afternoon. Amid the deepening crisis in Gaza and the U.S. is ramping up its diplomatic efforts, President Joe Biden is set to visit Israel on Wednesday as the country has agreed with Israel to come up with a plan to let humanitarian aid into Gaza. But the critical reopening of the Rafah crossing remains unclear. Shin Se-byuk has the latest.
U.S. President Joe Biden will visit Israel to reaffirm solidarity. That is according to U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Tuesday, following an overnight meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel's war cabinet members in Tel Aviv on Monday.
On Wednesday, President Biden will visit Israel. He's coming here at a critical moment for Israel, for the region, and for the world. The President will reaffirm the United States' solidarity with Israel and our ironclad commitment to its security.
Biden's scheduled meeting comes as Israel prepares for a ground offensive against Hamas in Gaza. Blinken also said the U.S. and Israel are set to work together to provide humanitarian aid to civilians in need.
The United States and Israel have agreed to develop a plan that will enable humanitarian aid from donor nations and multilateral organizations to reach civilians in Gaza.
The U.S. official made his second visit to Israel in under a week, where he reaffirmed firm support from the U.S. for Israel. Monday's overnight meeting lasted for over 6 hours. At one point, however, a State Department spokesperson said the meeting was briefly interrupted by air raid sirens, forcing Blinken and Netanyahu to take shelter in a bunker for 5 minutes. The evacuation came as the cities of Jerusalem and Tel Aviv came under fire on Monday. Palestinian militant group Hamas said it fired a barrage of missiles at the cities in response to what it called Israel's targeting of civilians. According to the Washington Post, at least 1,400 people have been killed and over 4,000 injured in Israel, while nearly 2,800 people have been killed and nearly 10,000 wounded in Gaza, since a surprise attack by Hamas on Israel sparked new fighting in the region on October 7th. Also on Monday, people gathered at the Rafah crossing on the Gaza-Egypt border, following reports that it would be reopened during a brief ceasefire. The crossing has been shut for security reasons since Hamas took control of Gaza in 2007. If the border were to open, Gazans with dual citizenship could leave the territory, and humanitarian aid now waiting on the Egyptian side could enter. However, both Israel and Hamas have denied reports of reopening, exacerbating an already desperate humanitarian crisis. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
North Korea reaffirms its stance at the UN that Pyongyang will not give up its nuclear weapons, once again citing threats from the U.S. Lee Seung-jae has more.
During the first committee of the United Nations General Assembly meeting on Monday, North Korea's Secretary for North Korea's permanent mission to the United Nations, Kim In-chul, said Pyongyang will not give up its nuclear weapons as it faces continuous threats from the United States. Kim said that the U.S. continues to deploy nuclear assets to the Korean peninsula, which are disguised with claims of being defensive in nature. He also added that the U.S. continues to conduct nuclear weapons tests despite its condemnation of North Korea's nuclear ambitions and has been accelerating a nuclear arms race. Both Seoul and Tokyo condemned Pyongyang's nuclear ambitions, calling for the North to give up its nuclear weapons and return to dialogue. Meanwhile, former U.S. Ambassador to South Korea Harry Harris, during a virtual seminar, called for the U.S. to keep strengthening its extended deterrence commitment to South Korea, as he stressed that North Korea's evolving military threats are far greater than before. Harris said that the North has been doubling down on its nuclear and missile programs under an aggressive nuclear policy stipulated in its constitution. However, the former ambassador said it would be a mistake to redeploy U.S. tactical nuclear arms to the Korean peninsula. Harris, who served from 2018 to 2021, also raised concerns about technological cooperation between Pyongyang and Moscow. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The third Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation kicks off today in Beijing as China seeks to expand its leadership on the global stage amid its rivalry with the U.S. During the two-day event, President Xi will deliver an opening speech as the event marks the 10th anniversary of his key One Belt, One Road initiative, which aims to bolster economic cooperation along the land and sea routes from China to Central Asia and Europe. So 140 countries are expected to participate, with eyes on a possible summit between President Xi and his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin. That will be their second face-to-face this year, with their solidarity against the U.S. likely to take center stage of their discussions, which could also entail a message on the Israel-Hamas conflict. Russia has started banning imports of all fish and seafood from Japan over Fukushima wastewater concerns. According to Russia's agricultural watchdog on Monday, this measure will remain in place as a precautionary measure until comprehensive information confirms the safety of the seafood. Japan's Kyodo News reported that Tokyo's Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries called for the revocation of the ban on the same day, citing a lack of scientific basis and deeming it unjust and regrettable. Last year, Japan exported 190 tons of seafood to Russia, which represents only 0.03% of Japan's total seafood exports of 630,000 tons. Russia's ban follows China's total ban of Japanese seafood in August. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida sent a ritual offering to the controversial Yasukuni Shrine to mark the beginning of Japan's three-day autumn festival. Kyodo News said Tuesday that Kishida sent a masakaki offering under his own name. Kishida has not visited the shrine in person since taking office 2 years ago and is unlikely to make an in-person visit during the event. The shrine, located in central Tokyo, remains controversial as it honors Japan's war dead, including 14 Class A war criminals. It has long been a source of diplomatic friction for Japan and its neighbors and is seen to symbolize Japan's wartime atrocities. One of Asia's largest aerospace and defense exhibitions here in Seoul, ADEX 2023, kicked off today with the country's first domestic-produced supersonic fighter jet, the KF-21, and a U.S. strategic bomber, the B-52, among the aircraft on show. Our defense correspondent Choi Min-jung reports.
South Korea's first homegrown supersonic fighter jet, the KF-21, soars above Seoul Air Base. It's being revealed to the public for the very first time at the biennial Seoul International Aerospace and Defense Exhibition, taking place from Tuesday to Sunday. This year's exhibition is the largest so far, with some 550 entities from 35 countries taking part. Spectators can get a rare up-close look at the country's latest military equipment, such as the F-35A stealth fighter jets and the F-A-50 light attack aircraft. Also on display is the country's main battle tank, the K-2 Black Panther, which shot to fame when Poland struck a deal to purchase 1,000 of them last year. And to commemorate the 70th anniversary of the Seoul-Washington alliance this year, the U.S. has boosted its display of military power.
Yes, the B-52 will conduct 1 to 2 flybys of Seoul Airfield during Seoul ADEX.
U.S. strategic bomber the B-52 is making an appearance as it is making a rare landing at a South Korean airbase this week. Also, one of the key U.S. assets on display is the F-22 Raptor, known as the world's most powerful fighter jet. Seoul ADEX has been growing in size with every edition, with Korea looking to become one of the world's top 4 defense export countries. It's also striving to become one of the world's top air shows.
We'll do our best to make Seoul ADEX, which will be held again in 2025, one of the world's top 3 air shows.
Taking this as an opportunity to promote the country's advanced military and space technologies overseas, South Korea has invited senior-level military officials and delegations from 53 countries. The exhibition was first launched in 1996 to promote domestic defense firms and boost global technology exchanges. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
And at the opening ceremony of ADEX this morning, President Yoon pledged to make South Korea's defense industry a global leader in cutting-edge aerospace technology as the country looks to rank among the world's top 5 space powers. Yoon says South Korea has transformed from an aid-dependent nation to a leading defense exporter with ADEX 2023, showcasing the homegrown KF-21 fighter jet, the M-SAM air defense system, as well as tanks, rocket launchers, and other major export items. He vowed to build a domestic industrial ecosystem and strengthen cooperation with friendly countries to foster global competitiveness, in particular in artificial intelligence and digital technology, which are crucial for victory on future battlefields. Leaders from Asia-Pacific nations gathered this week here in South Korea to discuss how to envision digital and data cooperation. There, South Korea renewed its support for the establishment of a digital order and shared prosperity. Lee Si-hu reports.
South Korea is doing its best to achieve shared prosperity in digital technology with countries around the world. That is according to Science Minister Lee Jong-ho at the regional consultation for the Asia-Pacific on the United Nations Global Digital Compact that kicked off in Seoul on Monday.
South Korea supports the UN's establishment of principles of digital resources and will actively participate in the making of the order and solidarity of the international community.
For 2 days beginning on Monday, government, business, and academic leaders from 11 Asia-Pacific nations are discussing ways to envision digital and data cooperation. Co-hosted by the South Korean government and the UN Office of the Secretary General's Envoy on Technology, the meeting provides a chance for the region to exchange their views on realizing a shared vision.
So a consultation like the one today that's being hosted by the Republic of Korea is really important for countries to come around a table and really discuss how we can actually work together on leveraging the power of digital technologies for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals.
The consultation follows Seoul's commitment to establishing a digital order and principles as shared by President Yoon Suk-yeol at the UN General Assembly last year. This year, the South Korean government published what it calls the Digital Bill of Rights.
The Digital Bill of Rights presents 5 principles to achieve an exemplary society that people around the world should pursue. They are freedom, fairness, safety, innovation, and solidarity.
The Digital Bill of Rights lists specific principles based on 6 categories. They include ways to safeguard freedom, offer fair access, as well as promote innovation and human well-being. Meanwhile, the results of the consultation will be reflected in the UN Global Digital Compact set to be signed at the Summit of the Future in September 2024. Lee Si-hu, Arirang News.
South Korea's import and export prices in September have jumped for the 3rd consecutive month due to oil price increases. According to the Bank of Korea on Tuesday, import prices jumped 2.9% a month as reduced oil output pushed the price of oil and mineral products up. Export prices also increased 1.7% compared to the month before, mainly led by higher coal and petroleum product costs. A central bank official said import and export prices in October could also be affected by the Israel and Hamas war, adding the need to keep an eye on fluctuating oil prices. The cost of Dubai crude oil, South Korea's benchmark, increased 7.9% a month in September to around $93 per barrel. The Chinese city Hangzhou, where the Asian Games recently came to a close, means more than just sports for Korea. It is where Korean independence fighters find a new beginning by relocating the provisional government after facing tough times in Shanghai. Our culture correspondent Song Yoo-jin has this story.
Hangzhou, the host of the largest ever Asian Games, holds a special place in Korea's heart beyond the medals and records. Right next to the famous Sihu, or West Lake in Hangzhou, you'll find the Memorial Hall of the Korean Provisional Government. So originally, there were 3 Korean Provisional Government buildings here in the city of Hangzhou, but this is the only one that's left. So as you can see, this building, it was originally used by government officials until 1934, but now it's used as an exhibition hall. Open to the public since 2007, the Memorial Hall has 2 main sections: a recreation of the rooms used by the government and an exhibition hall that tells the story of the Korean Provisional Government's 27-year struggle for independence. The Korean Provisional Government was set up in 1919 in Shanghai after the March 1st independence movement. However, it had to relocate after independence activist Yoon set off a bomb in Shanghai's Hongkou Park in 1932 that killed several high-ranking Japanese military officials. Fleeing from Japan's invasion of Shanghai, the Korean Provisional Government found refuge at an inn in Hangzhou in 1932. But due to budget constraints, they later moved their headquarters here to Hubian Village a year later. This 2-story building served as both a home and a workplace for government officials. Records showed that they stayed in Hubian until November 1934 before moving to their 3rd and final headquarters in Hangzhou, Wufuli. The memorial's director says the 3.5 years in Hangzhou were a crucial turning point for the Korean Provisional Government. It was during this period when Kim Gu, one of the founding members of the government, secretly met with then-Chinese leader Jiang Jieshi, where Jiang pledged to fund Korean independence fighters. Kim also established the Korean National Party, which united various scattered groups of independence activists. So, for those who want to step back in time and take a look at this history, the hall is open every day from 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., free of charge. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News, Hangzhou.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. We begin in the Belgian capital of Brussels, where 2 Swedish citizens have been killed in a shooting by a gunman still at large. The incident occurred on Monday evening ahead of a football match between Belgium and Sweden. The Euro 2024 qualifying match was abandoned at halftime over security concerns, with the score at 1-1. The shooting is being considered an act of terrorism, and terror alert levels have been raised to their highest. On social media, a man claiming to be from Islamic State took responsibility for the fatal attack and claimed to have killed 3 people. The attack comes amid heightened security concerns in Europe, linked to the Israel-Hamas conflict. Former Finnish president and Nobel Peace Prize winner Martti Ahtisaari died on Monday, aged 86. He had retired from public life in September last year after being diagnosed with advanced Alzheimer's. Ahtisaari was president of Finland for 1 term from 1994 to 2000. During that time, he oversaw the national referendum to join the European Union. And in 2008, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his work in resolving international conflicts. Ahtisaari was born in 1937 in the former Finnish town of Viipuri, which is now the Russian town of Vyborg. He was a primary school teacher before going into politics in 1965 and spent more than 2 decades working for the Finnish Foreign Ministry in Tanzania, Zambia, and at the United Nations. In sports news, cricket, flag football, squash, lacrosse, baseball and softball are set to become Olympic sports. Voting by the International Olympic Committee on Monday resulted in 88 of 90 members in favor of adding the 5 sports to the 2028 Summer Olympic Games in Los Angeles. The decision at the meeting in Mumbai, India, means that flag football will be seen at the international event for the very first time. The sport is a variant of American football, where a flag or flag belt from a ball carrier must be removed to end a down instead of using tackles. Cricket, meanwhile, makes a return for the first time since 1900. And finally, dog owners in the Peruvian capital Lima dressed their pets up on Sunday to take part in an annual Halloween costume contest. A panel of judges evaluated the four-legged contestants' costumes on creativity, originality, family involvement, and runway performance. Top prizes this year were awarded for Hollywood-inspired costumes, such as Wednesday from The Addams Family and Willy Wonka from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. The contest is meant to promote responsible ownership and pet adoption. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. As we are heading into late October, we can definitely feel that the air is getting colder and the days are becoming shorter. Many parts of Korea woke up to the chilliest morning weather of the season so far today, but at least afternoon highs will hike fast along with plenty of autumn sunshine. Craving hot soup weather for sure today. Take your vitamins and healthy meals to stay well. Many are coming down with a cold around this time of the year. We had a chilly start, but a pleasant afternoon ahead as long as you dress in layers. Highs in most parts are in the low 20s this afternoon, Seoul topping out at 20 degrees Celsius. Then the rain is in the forecast at the end of the week. Then that band of rain will bring a short winter vibe to the country this weekend. So if you're planning to be out of town this weekend, have extra layers to keep you warm, but at least it's going to be a sunny one. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Ahead of the Israelis' expected ground offensive in Gaza, tens of thousands of Palestinians have flocked into one place, the Rafah crossing in southern Gaza that borders Egypt. And it is now the last remaining exit with the two border crossings with Israel closed. It is also the only crossing point for foreign nationals out and humanitarian aid in. Yet the Rafah crossing remains closed, with Egypt, which controls Rafah, citing safety issues amid Israeli airstrikes. This comes amid a worsening situation in Gaza with no water, fuel, or electricity. The situation yet too complicated for Egypt, which has called on Palestinians to remain under land, fearing a massive influx of refugees and potentially the Hamas militants. This is where we end today's newscast. Thanks for watching.